Kick off the weekend, all right? It's the Growler Friday Show. It's Dey Light.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Dey Light. Paul Dehner Jr. here with you to kick off your weekend. But this is not Mark. Mark is gone. He's off in Disney World. He's parading around, trying to not lose his mind, hoping the kids don't melt down and doesn't have to hit the eject button to the hotel pool. But we have the ultimate fill, and one that I have been asked about as much as any potential guest since, for a long time, actually, for a very, very long time. And that is bringing back my old beat partner, my friend and yours, Jim Owczarski. Jim, what is up?
Hey, man, what's going on? Yes,
Look at us go. Look at us.
Let's go.
Together again.
Credit to Bengals fans and longtime podcast listeners, past and current, for you to always hit me up on this various social medias to bring back bits and thoughts and comments. And yeah, man, this is I appreciate that love. Let me get that out of the way. And yeah, thanks for having me.
I mean, we've got bits to get to. Okay. I have to say, I had the distinct pleasure of going back through a bunch of our old episodes this afternoon, and I was in tears laughing. What we got away with putting into the internet, to be honest, I'm a little taken aback by it. To those, so Jim, I should give you a proper introduction. Not everybody is an old school fan because the Bengals, since you left, have done some things, Jim. They have, in fact, welcomed in a lot of new fans that showed up along with Joseph Lee Burrow. And so they don't know, like the real ones like to point out, y'all don't know what it used to be around here. And I will point out it used to be fun what we would do in the misery of what Bengals fans were experiencing. But Jim covered the team with me for the Cincinnati Enquirer from the 15 through 17 seasons, but more 18, of a 4 year
Don't forget that terrible. Well, no, yeah, I guess you're right. 18 training camp. 18
training camp, and then you bailed because you were flight risk. I mean, you were a flight risk.
Or short me on that couple months, man.
It's the 18th season. You're with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel now. You covered the Packers, and then you covered the Milwaukee Bucks. Still did during their championship run. I won't ask you any Giannis trade questions. Not going to do that. I might be the only appearance that you make anywhere where you aren't asked where Giannis is going.
He's not going to Cincinnati. We know that.
We know that. Unless he wants a good meal or something, like, I'll host him. I'm happy to host him if he wants to come to town. We can take him to some of the old haunts. But we're going to get through. So there's some very relevant stuff, because I think it's funny. A lot of the storylines that existed back when you were here covering the team are still here now. I'm going through these old descriptions, and I'm like, stadium lease situation, ownership contract squabbles with stars. Like, all of this really sounds the same. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the organization and through the lens of some of the stuff that is happening now. We'll get into that with you. Aaron Rodgers just officially signed with the Steelers. You've covered Aaron Rodgers for a number of different years. I figure, hey, it's almost too perfect that news has dropped into our lap here today. So we'll get into a little bit of that. We're going to find out my favorite things. It was always every week. I couldn't wait to find out what's making Jim mad. We're going to find out what's making Jim mad. We are going to power rank things because power rankings are dumb. So we power rank dumb things. My favorite, one of my favorite bits in the history of podcasting. So we have a special extended edition of power rankings and what's making Jim mad that will be coming your way later on for the real ones. So we'll still do our regular stuff. We still got the spotlight, dad life, all of those things. Jim's going to delightfully indulge us as we kind of just go and throw back to the old days. Are you excited? I'm excited for this. I have built it up, and but I can't wait.
I can't wait either, buddy. It's been too long, and yes, very excited to get into this.
Let's get into it. I want to before we do, I do want to remind everybody, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code Growler, and you will get a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Download the BetMGM app, sign up using the bonus code Growler, deposit at least $10, place your first wager on any game. If you do that, you will receive that same bet amount up to $1,500 in a bonus bet if your bet loses. So just make sure your bonus code Growler is up when you sign up. And so don't forget, if you haven't signed up, for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code Growler. Get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Mark and I start off Who Dey Light the same way every week, Jim. And we talk about whatever our favorite story of the week is, and it's usually something a little comical that makes us laugh. In the Bengals verse, there's plenty of that. I'm going to kick it off to you. Do you have a favorite story or moment or interview or joke from the 2015 to, I guess, the beginning of 2018 season that you always go back to at this point?
So there are so many, but I'm gonna go like early, and I think it ties into modern day. It involves none other than Adam Jones.
Oh,
and so my first game, regular season game, the fans don't remember, in Oakland, and Adam Jones beat Amari Cooper with his own helmet on the field.
On the field during a play.
It was just I think a 15-yard penalty at the time, if there was one. And post game, Adam had a pretty expletive-laden interview about this and what he felt about Amari Cooper. And it was great. It was Adam at Adam's finest in the post game. But so that was what it was. But the best part for me that I go back to all the time is we get back from Oakland Monday. So this is like late Monday night. And I'm getting a call on my work issued cell phone. Like, you had that number. I think like 4 people had that number at that point. And it's, an unknown number. I'm like, I'm not answering this. And it's calling. Like, it called enough, like in a row. I'm like, all right, this is intentional. I should answer it. And it was Adam Jones. and Adam, shout out to Adam because he's doing this thing now for sure. But back then, 2015, he wanted to know if I had audio of the interview so he could put on his podcast because he loved the interview so much.
That was what I mean. That was kind of the daily operation of covering Adam Jones. You could just have had an Adam Jones beat reporter at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not go back to maybe the funniest thing that's ever happened in a Bengals post-game locker room, which is in Cleveland.
The trash can is also
the trash can. Adam Jones is going live. He makes an announcement. He had some things he wanted to say about Terrell Pryor and calling him trash, and he's standing there, and him and Dre Kirkpatrick are doing this interview, just absolutely decimating Terrell Pryor after the Bengals had won that game. They pull the trash can over. Terrell, you in there? You in there, Terrell? Shaking the trash can.
And the thing about, so for fans who wouldn't know, because there is video of it, and credit to Jeremy Rauch at the time, like he got Adam to kind of redo it. But in the moment, Adam walked out of the shower, towel, and yelled, Adam Jones is going live. And like everyone stops and sort of like turns, but other interviews were happening and just happened to be right in front. And it was, he went live. Shout out Adam. I give him credit for the podcast. Like, he's doing his thing and just, I guess, ahead of the curve for athlete pods. He was doing this 10 years ago or trying to. Asking me for that interview.
Yeah, I need that interview, man. Trying to get that out there. He's
hilarious.
got a lot of businesses. He's got a lot of businesses now that he's doing.
Right. I mean, clearly he got my number from, probably Bengals PR back then. But I like the idea of that, right?
Yes.
Like I need his number.
Yeah. Welcome to the beat, Jim. First game.
Yeah, that was literally first game.
Technically, your first beat at the Inquirer was Pete beat, though.
Yes.
You showed up, and it was right during, like, your first weekend was basically All-Star game.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we need to cover the fact that Pete Rose is going to be there. What do we stick the new guy on it? Shout out C. Trent, who's like, put the new guy on Pete. Okay. Yeah. And so you followed Pete Rose around the All-Star weekend, essentially. Yeah. And it was like, welcome to Cincinnati. Here you go. Go cover baseball now.
I know, right? Like, because that was it's crazy to think like that was the first time he was allowed in a ballpark, right? That was like the huge thing. And I'll never forget walking out into the dugout where I was not supposed to be and being seen on national television on the Jumbotron when they show Pete Rose. And then like up here is me.
Yeah.
Like this.
Just hoping not to get thrown out because you weren't
and then
supposed
showed
to
up
be
on
there.
the Jumbotron, of course. So as I walk out, I am being, again, expletive laden, berated, chased by that broadcast network's people because this was only supposed to be their show. And the only thing that saved me was Reds owner Castellini ends up in the hall with Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench. I'm thinking these guys were all alive in 15, right? I'm not. So, and then they all start like hugging each other in the back hall. So this guy like had to stop swearing at me because this was, and I'm like trying to like scoot it around. These like old dudes all like hugging and crying each other, running out, run into Tom Brenneman in the concourse, and then a deep shot to center field, whatever. And it was, that was a heck of a start.
That was one heck of a start. Can I give you one of my favorite things that ever happened? It was, and I think it kind of typified what made you great as a reporter and why I loved working with you, was Geno Speaks. Nothing makes me happier than Geno Speaks, which for those that don't know, Geno Atkins decided after the 2013 season that he was not going to speak to the media. And we never really pushed back on it. He was a quiet, introverted guy. He didn't want to do it. We weren't going to make him do it. But you showed up and you're like, and it's 2015. He's having an all-pro season, one that might be what puts him over the top to maybe getting him into the Hall of Fame as we start debating that case now here soon. And you're like, no, I'm talking to this guy. And I'm going to do every single thing I possibly can to do so. And you tried. You would go up. You would ask at pretty much every open locker room. And then it went from just getting denied to be like, let's try Geno notes. And it would be, what we're going to do now. And you would have your notepad and you'd write, Geno, would you talk to me? Yes, no, maybe. Right. And you'd hand it to him. And just to try to get Geno Atkins to talk to us at all. Right. And this went on all year and it was no. He's not going to do it. But you and the social media updates, tried talking to Geno again today. Here was my approach, was just one of my favorite things. But you just were not you're not going to say you're not trying and not to make it happen. And then the meltdown at Paul Brown game happens, which is an unbelievable, arguably the most memorable. I'm not going to say for Bengals fans would say maybe not greatest, but in terms of what that was in the moment and impactful, that is one of the craziest games you'll ever see. And after it, the Bengals are dealing with the fact that this happened again. And we're talking to Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins is like, I'll talk now. You ask, he says yes. And he gives maybe the greatest 10 minutes by an athlete I've ever heard post game. He was incredible. I was like, of all the things that happened this night, what an unbelievable turn for Geno Atkins to just deliver the goods on the epic fail night of the Marvin Lewis era.
Yeah. Geno Speaks was I did not accept that coming in because I remember all y'all told me he don't talk, and that was just not going to fly. And I think I got maybe a couple quotes because then he realized if he actually said anything to me, it was on the record. I think there was once in Buffalo, he yelled something at me and then he whatever else. But the great aside to this in that locker room was on the D-line wall is all of his teammates were in on it. And they were like, so that turned into it too. So anytime I got discouraged, Carlos Dunlap, Michael Johnson, Deshaun Williams, even I think the young guy at that time, all these guys were like, Geno, why don't you talk to Jim? Come on, man. Then they'd be giving it to him, which I think drove him even more insane, right?
Yes.
That I don't know this for sure. Maybe Geno can tell me one day, but that whole thing, was quite a. It was. Pretty
I'm curious. We're going to get into Geno Atkins in the Hall of Fame conversation is what's next for him. Do you think his reluctance to be, I don't know, out there to talk will hinder him when it comes to the Hall? You know,
Yes.
I mean, he's already in an anonymous position and an anonymous market, and they never had a playoff run to really amplify him, and he refused to speak to the media. I wonder, like, how much that will impact him.
Oh, I think it'll be a huge, and I hate to say that because it really shouldn't matter.
But it does.
But it does, unfortunately. And I mean, look at like, first of all, the fact that the Bengals, like, it took Ken Riley so long, the fact that Willie Anderson's still knocking on the door, like, there are too many Hall of Famers in the history of the organization anyway, right? That aren't in. And a lot of these dudes, like, I wouldn't say they campaign per se. Some of them have, but a lot of them are, like, out there. I mean, the Super Bowl is going to help Andrew Whitworth, but let's not think that his role now on a broadcast isn't going to help immensely, right? And so, yeah, I think you're right. It's the Cincinnati, shade or whatever fans want to call it. It's deserved. No Super Bowl, 0-7, whatever the record was, right? Like that we know going in. So that's going to hurt. But I think, Paul, like, you're right. Like, for an anonymous position in an organization in an era that was often derided, just, unfortunately and improperly, I think he's going to suffer for that, because there's not like sack leader, there's not fumbles leader, he's got the stats and the all pros and the pro, like, that is going to measure up. But it's hard because he's just in the wind to a degree.
And defensive tackles have a hard time getting in anyway.
Yeah.
And he'll, he's going to have only a few years ahead of Aaron Donald, who's going to then, and he's kind of the guy before that, but he's fringe. He's got 2 All Pros and 8 Pro Bowls, and 2 years where he was truly elite. But is that going to end up being enough in the eyes of the Hall of Fame? I mean, Witt is definitely going to get in by virtue of his second act in LA and then everything he's done. I think since then, amplifying but he would not have, if his career ended the day that him and Troy Blackburn and Katie couldn't agree, he would not get into the Hall of Fame, even though I would say he would have deserved to just off of that. But people, because of what's happened since then, and because what he was in LA and what he's been since then, I think it has amplified how good he was before, and what would be what gets him in. But I think the fact that Geno's career kind of did end without that last act will end up hurting him a little bit. I want to ask you also, one of my favorite things from that first season, we started with a bang. They started off 8-0. You had Adam trying to decapitate Amari Cooper in Oakland. You had, on the flight out there, you had breaks on a plane, which was the AJ Green contract that went all the way down to the last possible second, where you were literally on the plane out to the bay tweeting that you had it in front of everybody, which was unbelievable. Breaks on a plane happens right then. What did you take away? Because this is, Trey Hendrickson is dealing with this now. Jamar and T just did. Burrow did. There's a lot of talk about how the Bengals ownership handles these negotiations. That was a part of the conversation when you were covering this as well and breaking these stories from planes. What did you take away from how they handle it compared to how you've seen others in the league handle those types of things?
I think it's all about what you just said there, the last minute nature of it, and we're going to negotiate as hard as possible till it cannot be negotiated any longer, right? And I think back then, I don't know if the club, I think it was a club kind of deadline, right? Like regular season starts, it's a wrap.
Yeah, that's it.
And so this was pushed up by like 12 hours because they were leaving early for California, right? And obviously AJ Green, I think at the time, highest paid wide receiver. So there were a couple of things there. One was, even then, the Bengals, I want to say always, but the Bengals generally paid top of market prices for their top of market players. They just did it in a way that wasn't like anyone else. And so they always got, knocked for being cheap or whatever it was. But then yet they always had like these top paid pass rushers, corners, receivers, quarterbacks, defensive tackles, right? Like premier positions they paid for. But it was always a struggle. It was always difficult. There was always wording, right? They didn't want to set a precedent in that would put them at a disadvantage later. And then, of course, wanted to set a precedent that would give them an advantage later in other organizations. So, and yeah, like it's Bengals fans are like, wait a minute. Yeah, I literally lived in the same thing in the last couple of years. Obviously you guys have talked about it. I know, they have moved off with some of the guaranteed money and the cash and all that escrow stuff that the game now requires. Back then it didn't. So why would they do that? But they did pay. And I think that was the biggest takeaway. And because look, in Green Bay, for instance, the Packers for a long time were not a team that like kicked the can down the road financially in terms of, wow, they're going to be this far over the cap, whatever. They were always not a cash flow team, but they didn't like to roll over dead money, right? Which the Bengals, so that was very similar, but yet the Packers did it in a more traditional way. There were still signing bonuses. There were still some things that made them more in line with the league, whereas the Bengals were here. But what was similar was no dead money. We're not like operating with that in the future. Interestingly enough, MVP quarterback changed their mind and had them change operating procedures. We can argue how successful that was for the Packers since then. We'll see what happens in Cincinnati with that. But yeah. And then, in terms of the breaks from a plane, that was interesting because, again, a different era. Insiders existed at that time. The people involved weren't interested in insiders having that news. So, the Cincinnati Enquirer was the one to get it, and it just happened to be me on an airplane somewhere over the Great Plains.
Incredible. Because we were there. You had gone early to stay ahead of the team, and I had stayed back to come back later and cover the last Friday at the stadium. And it turns out that was when it all went down. And so we got AJ there, I think, or somehow we got somebody there when it all went down, all because you had broken it from the flight that was already in the air. And we're all like following. We were following. I mean, I wasn't following. Luckily, you were carrying me at that point. I appreciated it. I want to, Aaron Rodgers signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers officially here today, right before we came on. It went so sideways. This was a prediction that I took on the chin a bit last year. I was like, look, the Jets, if Rodgers can be like 80% of his Hall of Fame self, and they have this defense that had been so good, and Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, and they had stars, and it felt like it's just so everything feels so toxic around Aaron from your time covering him in Green Bay and following him as that saga played out and seeing as he's now kind of started this other level of his career. What do you make about what's happened to Aaron Rodgers? And do you think he has a shot of being successful still in Pittsburgh?
So I'll handle the last part first. Simply, no, I don't think so. Like the recent track record, recent being, let's see, he was fired in Green Bay after 2022. And what year is this going to be? Season? Yeah. I just don't see, I mean, I would require such a personality change that, I guess it's human. I always allow this, right? Like there are no absolutes in pro sports. So seeing what he did in 2019, when he thought he had all the organizational power, and then the Packers backhanded him and said, no, you don't. And he kind of had to go along grudgingly with Matt LaFleur because they were winning. He didn't like it in particular, but he couldn't really say much. So I guess if the Steelers do Steeler things and just kind of win, and even if he's not liking it, like he'll kind of roll with it because winning is winning.
The Tomlin Rodgers dynamic is going to be fascinating for me to watch, knowing the two personalities. Now, Tom, if there's a coach that can do it, Tomlin is the one that can harness in the big personality. But at this guy at this position, I'll be fascinated to see what that looks like. I want to ask you this. So Bengals at Packers this year is happening. Very exciting. A lot of Bengals fans are excited to go up to Green Bay. You live in Milwaukee, have been in Milwaukee for a long time. That's what, people don't realize this. You actually were commuting essentially from Milwaukee when you worked here. Your wife hi Michelle, if she's around, who is amazing, has a great job back in Milwaukee. You would go back and forth in the off season. You had a place here. A lot of good stories came out of that, including the life of the Yaris, the Yar that just like racked up. How many miles did the Yar end up at, Jim?
Oh man, I think it was close to 300,000 before I finally had to. Yeah, it was
not a hubcap in sight, but that
not a hubcap in sight. Adam Jones said he would rock that Yaris with me on a show we did once.
He did, and
we figured we thought like 4 Pat Sims could fit in there. That's what I thought.
We thought you could fit 3.5 Pat Sims is where we landed with it. I think it's where we landed. Road trip advice for someone going to Green Bay for the first time. What would you give them as advice?
Yeah, so I guess I'm sure the trip to Indy has been done shooting up through Indiana is not that exciting. So yeah, once you get to Wisconsin, I guess a couple things, like if it's going to be a whole weekend and you're a golfer, like I would say the Lake Geneva area, which is right over the border of Illinois, has a bunch of golf courses.
How are we looking on October 12th for golf?
It might be one of those where, like, if you're rolling up in the morning, you're going to hit that sweet, like, midday window where it could be looking like 55, 60, which doesn't maybe sound warm. Trust me, having lived down there by the river. But here, it might feel cool, but it'll be a really nice day. So I think fall golf in Wisconsin is great if that's, a thing people do. But rolling up all the way to Green Bay, I'm guessing, there's not a ton of hotels up there. Like it's Appleton and the Green Bay, and they're
probably
expensive.
all sold out by now.
They're probably all sold out. So my guess is y'all are gonna be staying in Milwaukee and doing the long drive up and the long drive back. And so, like on the way up, Mars Cheese Castle, like there's other local cheese places to stop. Mars Cheese Castle is the easiest one. They've got all the good stuff. It's right off the highway. It's a huge sign. You can't miss it. That's
Get
right
your
between,
cheese there.
Yeah. Because look, I'm not going to be a cheese hipster here, man. Like, just stop at the easy
cheese hipsters.
Yeah,
I feel like cheese hipsters definitely would have ended on a piece of what's making Jim mad at some point. Cheese hipsters.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm going to recommend the spot that we went to. So if you're going to settle in like Friday night, Saturday, whatever the trip is, Uber over to Bryant's. It's not really going to pop up on your like bars to go to. And it is a cocktail bar. And when I say cocktail bar, that is like old school. It's like, looks like a house. You walk in and it's like dim red lighting. It feels like a basement because that's what we do here. And there's not a menu. You tell them what you like, no matter how absurd or flavor or whatever, and they will blow your mind. And so, like, that's a cocktail bar. I'll give folks Bernhardt's is just like it's not a dive. It's kind of trendy. You might like it. It's got everything on tap, all the good stuff that you like. And then Tenuda's, it's Italian. But if you're looking like, hey, man, I want to get a pizza and I want whatever, Tenuda's Pizza is great. Comic Cafe. And then if you're into like spending a little bit of money, Small Plate, Odd Duck, ODD Duck. That's like
we ate there.
Yeah.
We ate at Odd Duck. I remember that place. That was good. I like that spot. But the drive from Milwaukee to Green Bay it's a 4:30 kickoff. It's not the greatest.
Early. No,
how early would you like with traffic? It's what, 3 hours? 4?
So yeah, 3. So at 3:30 Central, yeah, you're gonna want to be leaving. It's like an hour and a half. Yeah, I would leave.
It's about an hour and a half with traffic.
No.
Double that.
9. Let's say if you don't want to have to park and walk a ton, it's a all day, man.
Yeah.
Like
9, and you should get up, go up there early,
should.
go see Green Bay, see the thing, like do the Mecca of football thing up there, and go up early and explore, because you're not going to, if you're staying in Milwaukee, you're not going to want to be fighting the traffic and worrying about all that stuff. Anyway,
no, because what's going to happen is if you don't beat the wave, you're going to get stuck. And then you're not going to be able to park close as you want. You're not going to be able to go to Crowell's across the street or wander into someone's party house, which has been done. You'll see it when you get there. There's homes that have been purchased by entertainment companies basically and flipped into like Packers houses. Pretty friendly. The tailgate's great. But Lambeau itself, like I know Bengals fans aren't going to be like buying Packers gear per se, but like the Pro Shop, the Hall of Fame, like all that, the atrium, like it's just a cool place to go in and be able to walk around. And if you leave too late, you're just gonna get like the line to get into there is just, it's in the neighborhood. I know like the banks can be kind of tough, so maybe some Bengals fans will be like can understand that a little bit. But you're gonna be parking on people's lawns. They're selling, park on my, right outside my front door for $80 or $60, whatever it may be. So yeah, leave early Sunday. Beat the rush for sure.
Yeah. Well, we will take that and re-rack it again when we get into the week of games in October. Here's what Jim is telling everybody that's going Green Bay to do, to remind you, in case you weren't listening to this episode, which put that away and keep that in your head if you are going to Green Bay, which will be a very fun trip. I'm hoping to come up and hang out in Milwaukee, so maybe you'll see me and Jim at one of those places that you just spoke about. I'm here for that. Before we get into power rankings and what's making Jim mad, I want to point out our Growl Pal Spotlight of the week this week. The Logan Wilson Celebrity Softball Tournament is on Wednesday. That's at Day Air Ballpark in Dayton. You've probably heard about it at this point. They open the gates at 5, home run derby at 6, softball game at 7. Great causes associated with that through Logan Wilson. Go to loganwilsonsoftball.com. I mean, I've seen the people that have RSVPs at this point. I mean, Jamar, Zach Taylor, Icky Woods, Geo, you name it, they're all going to be there. It's going to be quite a scene. They did it, if you were up to the one last year, you saw what kind of a deal it was. They do a great job for great causes, so make sure you're going out and supporting that if you're up in the Dayton area. loganwilsonsoftball.com, and you can get your tickets at there. It's our Growl Pal Spotlight this week because a lot of great causes involved there. All right, Jim.
Wait, real quick.
Yes.
Quick. Do they boo the quarterback during the home run derby?
Oh, they don't know.
No.
Well,
okay.
The quarterback doesn't show up at the home run derby here now. He's too big for that, probably.
Okay,
maybe he does. Maybe QB1 shows up. I doubt it, but I mean, you're right. It was, God, what a year. The same All-Star game that you were doing Pete beat, Andy Dalton was getting booed, and I had to go meet him in the hallway afterwards and be like, Andy, they're booing you. It was like a thing. And he's like, what? How many homers did I hit? That's all he cared about. How many homers did I hit? Because he's the nicest guy in the history of humankind. And he was just like so happy that he went out there and hit a couple of the homers in the home run derby. He could have cared less about it. He was just all good. No problems on his end. What a ridiculous weekend that was. Which set off Andy's hair. The year of Andy's hair was the difference.
Yeah. He almost won. Look, man, he doesn't break. He wouldn't have beat Cam Newton for MVP, but he would have been second, in my opinion. That was like that year he had was just, it's an all-timer. What if?
All-timer. What if? Do they win in Denver on whatever Monday Night Football if Andy Dalton is the quarterback instead of AJ McCarron, who AJ was fine in that game. In fact, he came out like a ball of fire, but the way they were playing, the way that offense was humming with Andy at that point, they're the number 1 seed. They're the number 1 seed if he doesn't break his thumb.
That's the thing about that year. I don't know. You were about to go somewhere off the Logan Wilson softball thing, but I just that's just the thing. Like they were so good. They smashed people.
Yeah,
like that was like, and then they played some good teams, and like I mean I believed it then, I believe it now. Like that was one of those where I think they were winning the AFC that year if he stayed healthy. And so like it was just
it's an interesting dynamic, because at that same time before that season I did the retrospective series on the 05 Bengals. These 5 seasons have been very memorable. Even go back to 95, Jeff Blake. That was when they, the house that Blake built when the stadium got through, because of Jeff Blake breathing life into a dead franchise. And then 05, you get one of the most memorable, beloved teams in Bengals history. 15, they start 8-0, and they could have gone on to pretend, if it wasn't for the broken thumb, who knows? If it wasn't for Carson's knee, who knows? Maybe that's not a good sign for Joe Burrow's health this year. I don't know. Did Blake survive 95? I think he
did.
But memorable, great seasons have happened. All right. So when we would do our podcasts together back in the day, pretty much my favorite part would be 2 segments that we started putting into the end of all these pods, and that was power rankings, because power rankings are dumb, so we would power rank dumb things. That was where we came up with. We got so sick of having to react to power rankings. Like, we'll start just power ranking stupid things to show you how dumb they really are. And I really, really enjoyed it. The other was what's making Jim mad. And there was always something that had you mad, right? There's just something that had you mad. And it just, you needed a platform to let it out.
It's true.
Properly. So I went through a bunch of our old episodes and the descriptions, because usually at the end I would put in the description whatever was making you mad and whatever we power ranked. And it got a chance for me to compile a list of all the things, the most notable things that we power ranked and were making you mad at the time. And for those on YouTube, you can look at it here, and Jim, you can see it here. Okay. So here we go. Things we power ranked. Worst moments in Cincy sports. Milk, a 64 box of Crayolas, evasive Marvisms, coffee, bodies of water, which was literally like we were like putting rivers up against lakes and oceans. The way things are ranked. We power ranked the way things are ranked. Birthdays, food, Lebowski quotes, Tupac conspiracy theories, French fries, American Gladiators, one of my favorites. Shout out Nitro. Cincinnati highways, another favorite. 80s sitcoms, marsupials, commonly misspelled words, and the often polarizing, often returned into these conversations. I hear about this maybe more than anything we ever did. Hand drying methods. The old hand drying methods, where we went deep on that one. Things that were making Jim mad. People walking in the street, traffic patterns, pumping gas, lanes, the Masters, breakfast buffet inconsistency, fake money, pickles, manspreading, truffle oil, quote, being out of stuff, salmon shorts, which way bathroom doors should swing, car spiders. All of these things made their way into these conversations. And I got to say, what I kind of thought would be fun to do is how about we power rank which of these things are maybe you're still mad about, or you're still passionate about to this day, whether it's something you power ranked or what was making you mad. We would always do top 2, bottom 2.
Yeah.
So we would pick our top 2 and our bottom 2. How about we go off this list? We could start just by power rankings and do memorable, and then we'll see what's still making you mad. How's that sound?
Okay.
Give me some power rankings on things we ranked. Is there anything that stands out to you? What's your top 2?
Top 2, gotta be Tupac conspiracy theories. Like, because it's still, it's all these years, 30 years later, and he's still in Cuba, man. I don't know.
He's still down there. He's still down there.
Might be. So, and then hand drying methods for sure. Because those are still like, that's still a thing, So I think those are my top 2 power rankings.
Yeah. I would say my number 2, you really got after me for my milk takes back in the day. I didn't realize as I was going and re-listening today, you just kept calling me Skim Boy a couple times. Like, and I was like, look, I was in the skim at the time. All right. I shouldn't have had to apologize for that. I'm not going to put milk up there. I really enjoyed marsupials when we got, we were pretty dark and it was a pretty dead period in between a couple lost seasons when we were going that way. I will say when we power ranked the way things are ranked, because it was a chance for me to go off on Mount Rushmore and how much I can't stand the Mount Rushmoring that we do, which is good for this time of year as we see more people do it. I enjoyed both of those. Let's do this. Power rank. You want to power rank what's still making you most mad off of this list?
Yeah. I mean, there's only 2. I mean, one is car spiders, bro. Like, I moved. I have new cars.
Yeah.
In like a new garage. And like they're still, crawling on the thing, like it's like right there. They're just, and then pickles. That's still
pickles.
That is still a do not put pickles on the plate. Do not put pickles on the thing. And they still show up. And like my favorite one of those was after Bengals Patriots. It was like a Red Robin in that Foxborough area, and Sam Green, photographer at the Inquirer, stopped the waitress and was like, "No, seriously, don't put pickles on his cheeseburger.
Do not do it. You're going to ruin this day."
Scared the hell out of this person, and they came back, and the pickles were on the bottom, bro. Like not on the top. And he did that on purpose. On the bottom, and she like, so I'm like flicking them off on the plastic, and she was so apologetic, and I think somewhat afraid. So pickles and car spiders for sure. Top two.
Yeah, car spiders got a lot of run, and that a lot of people associated with your problem with the car spiders. I had never realized that they were this big of a problem. I'd never had really, but now every time I see a car spider, I think of you. Like if I ever think I see anything or whatever, I'm always like, Jim's like,
I remember
so mad
that
right now.
You were like, you're like, what are you talking about? Like that was, you were blissfully unaware.
I enjoyed when I went back and re-listened to one today. We would have this theme music that would play in, and it was this like dun 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 dun, and I just say, "What's making you mad, son?" And then you just pop in with salmon shorts. I was like, "You're right. You did like you would just it would just be whatever you had on top of your head." So salmon shorts stuck out to me. Being out of stuff. It was almost always something because you were doing so much driving back in the day.
Yeah.
But between people walking on the street, traffic patterns,
it was on
gas, like it was always lanes, like it was always something that had you mad from your drive. That always got me going, and I enjoyed it immensely. I appreciate that. And now that said, what's making you mad now, Jim?
Man, expiration dates on like cookies and cereal. Like I don't think that's a thing. Like you
don't believe them. You don't think that they have expired.
No. And this is a constant battle. Like I don't think they should be there. And I don't think like it's not a good buy. Like they're things that makes me mad. Because I feel like I can't eat it. It's like I can't eat this. I can eat that. It's gonna be fine,
and I'll be fine.
It tastes good. Yeah, man. Look, and not expiration dates on milk like that for sure is like no. I'm happy about that. But expiration dates on like, Lucky Charms and some more Chips Ahoy. Nah, and that causes consternation in the house because it's, Michelle wants to throw this stuff away or someone, I'm not liking that.
You need for some of these things, like for cereal, we do this. You get the vacuum seal container. So when we get the cereal, empty it, throw the box with the stupid expiration. You don't need it anymore.
You don't need it. It's not in your face.
Vacuum seal, son. And we put it away, and then it's there for as long as you need it for. I got goldfish for my kids that have been vacuum sealed for like 4 months that are in there. They're all good. Okay. I don't need to see no expiration date. Yeah, don't give me expiration. I'll tell you when I'm going to be eating this cookie.
Exactly.
Don't tell me when I'm eating the cookie.
I don't appreciate that very much.
I'll decide if it's stale and you can shut up.
It's true.
Oh man, good stuff. I appreciate that. All right. I missed that segment so much. I gotta tell you, I could have gone back and listened to all of those this afternoon as I was compiling that list. Too good.
A big one. Look, man, I feel like if you listened to the BBP back then or found over the podcast back then, excuse me, y'all probably didn't get COVID because I was telling y'all to wash your hands in like 2015. I mean, I know I saw those people. I said, what's making people don't wash it? Like that was.
Can we reconnect? Can we reconnect with the take, by the way, which was the fact that it ever existed, that the rolly, the thing in the old busted gas stations, the one rolly towel that just goes in a circle, and we're all supposed to be comfortable with that. The fact that ever existed is beyond my question. But you were very strong against the Dyson Airblade.
Yeah,
which is prominent everywhere now.
It's prominent, yeah.
And I don't know what you thought about the rise of the Dyson Airblade, considering
like
how against it.
Yeah.
What was your problem with it? Was the poopicles, right?
Yeah, man, that never went away.
that it would be throwing the poopicles into the air.
Yeah, man, like it's out there. Paper. Some things should still be on paper.
Yeah,
and one of them. Dry the hands
is the drying of the hands. Bathroom. Is there any new technology that has come your way in that area that you're coming around on now?
No, I mean, you
just still paper.
Still wash your hands. Still paper for me. I mean,
okay,
and that's I think. I mean, because the touchless stuff I understood. We all understood it, but like I also feel like that was maybe a little overblown as we learned. Because if you wash your hands, chances are you're not going to pick up any weird poopicles, viruses, things of that nature.
I hope people that are listening here appreciate that this is how it was every week when the Bengals sucked. All right? Like, they're good now. Okay? We have real things to talk about.
Right.
Okay? Like, we have, like, legitimate stuff to talk about, real things. Back in the day, once we got through that 15 season and the meltdown happened, like, this is what we had to do to get by ourselves. Yeah. Okay. If we were going to survive on this beat, this is what it had to be. Which leads me to a few more of my favorite moments that I want to make sure have a space here.
Yeah.
And there was a moment when I killed Carl Weathers. The first time. I didn't realize Carl Weathers was still with us and actually doing quite well. He had a hit sitcom. He was hosting NFL
doing
Honors.
Very well.
Yeah. And I just thought he was dead and had kind of killed him in this episode. And then it was pointed out he was very much alive. And then we tried to get him on the show because this was very much a running bit for a long time because he was hosting NFL Honors that year. And he's like, nah, dog, I'll pass on that one. I don't think so. But I want to point it out for our YouTube folks that you did purchase this for me, which was if you can see it here, that is Carl Weathers Apollo Creed with X's over his eyes.
I had to explain to Paul just because Apollo Creed died in Rocky IV didn't mean that Carl Weathers was dead.
He did to me. And the whole we've reached out to Carl Weathers people storyline that occurred when we were doing that was one of my favorites, and I always appreciate it. This action figure is prominently in my background, always has been, and I certainly appreciate that. We also used to have That's So Jaggy, which was I had unfortunate bets that I was placing against our good friend Richard Skinner every year on Jags over unders because I was just I kept buying Bortles. I kept buying, and they get close every year. And you got me a Mark Berline action figure one year, which I appreciated.
You know,
still got that one. Oh, they never won a single bet. They were always so jaggy. They're still jaggy to this day, Jim. Yeah, they're still jaggy.
Yeah. You forget that Carl Weathers, back when that one social media site was fun, responded to us with a hashtag BPs.
BPs.
We didn't know what that meant, but we just, that's part of my daily mantra now. It has been ever since. Yes.
Hashtag BPs.
Yeah.
Should Marvin Lewis be introduced into the Ring of Honor at some point? This is going to come up. They're rethinking the Ring of Honor after this year. And it's like, okay, should coaches be involved? Like Sam Weiss should be in there. Even Forrest Gregg, take a team to the Super Bowl. Should Marvin Lewis be in there?
Man, I think so. You're the most successful coach in franchise history. I guess that bar will move, like if Zach stays the coach for 10 more years, right? But I think Forrest Gregg's interesting because that's like if it's just you get to the Super Bowl, like if that's the bar, which would make sense, then obviously only 3 guys are going in there, right? But Forrest Gregg's interesting to me. I mean, Marvin, look, man, for all the sometimes deserved shots and arrows he would take like that, the Bengals became like after 89, right? Like they were what? Until
they were a playoff drought.
Yeah.
Well, they were a joke. They were a joke.
Yeah.
The worst decade ever. And then Marvin brought them back to relevancy.
And so there's something to be said for that, in my opinion. And that's to me what Ring of Honors are about. They're not the sports Hall of Fame. I guess that would be the Bengals version of it. I would think so, man. I mean, I cover teams like there are Packers players in their Hall of Fame that weren't part of Super Bowl champions. The Milwaukee Brewers, I think, do a really great job of recognizing their great players / fan favorites. I realized Marvin at the time, but I think history should shine a better light on Marvin. I think I think so. Like, I'm
curious. I'm just curious if it'll ever get to a point where that's where, I mean, five division titles, I mean, you can go, if you go into the AFC North thing, because it obviously always ended in the playoffs, but like what he did bringing them back to relevancy, I don't know, just on my mind. Because I was thinking of how, we're back on that same year where we're going to Green Bay, we're going to Minnesota again this year, which is where the pregame, I think your coach just quit happened, where you were coming down into the hotel lobby to meet Skinny, and the word came out with a Schefter story that Marvin Lewis is done after the season and he's walking away. And it's like, I think your coach just quit. And from there it was chaos. And we had the press conference after that the next day where I asked him if he wants to be the coach of the Bengals next year. And he said, sure. And it was the least enthusiastic response to a very important question that there's maybe ever been. I've never forgotten it. I can't answer sure to anyone for the rest of my life after that. But that entire situation was so surreal, Jim. I'll never forget it. It was just surreal.
Some of you may own a T-shirt that says "Sure," right?
I do have a T-shirt that says "Sure" on it. That was given. Yeah, it was another great gift.
It was even worse. So Skinny was coming. He was in the lobby. Kareem Elgazar, former photographer at the Inquirer, Lindsey Patterson, and I had just gotten breakfast. Things that make Jim mad. Having French toast in front of me. looking great, ready. Nope. And then we get lost on the way to US Bank. That was a disaster. Watching Katie walk across the field to go ask Marvin if he's still the coach. And that whole thing happened. That was just wild. Like, I haven't experienced anything like that since, where they're on the bus going to US Bank and players are texting me like, Marvin's at the front of the bus. And I legitimately, I had to set the one, like, can you just ask him?
Ask him. I'd love to know.
And post game, like, that was just it was wild. Like, yeah, and clearly the team was demoralized at that point. They got pounded, right? It was probably a game. Maybe they were still flirting with, like, if we win out, we can. And that was the end of that season. Yeah,
total mess. I went on to write the Marvin Lewis obituary, essentially, of his legacy. Marvin Lewis's complicated legacy, a story I'm very, very proud of, except they kept him after that. I wrote the end of the Marvin Lewis tenure story, and I'm like, what a man. And then they're like, Panda Watch, day 22, Marv's back.
That led to a great another great airplane story, because we all had to get a red eye out of Baltimore. Because it was like, is Marvin going to get fired tomorrow? It was
the night of 4th and 12, Tyler Boyd, Dalton to Boyd.
And so it was just like us on this plane.
Yes.
And New Year's Eve, flight attendant, did not want to be there. Michelle was super happy to be there. Southwest rocked these drink tickets.
Coupons.
And they were not having it.
No.
We were ready to turn up on that flight coming back from Cincinnati at like 1 a.m. on New Year's.
We were in the air. We were in the air at midnight, toasting and having a good old time on the way back to find out. Then you had days of waiting after that to see if Marvin would come back, and he did. Good times. Great, just great stuff. I think I've covered a lot of ground I wanted to cover today.
So I had to dig this up. So this is 9 years later. I saved this.
What is this? What are you about to show me?
I don't think this has ever been seen.
Oh, is this the notes?
No.
No. Is this the Ken Zampese tree? You still have the Ken Zampese tree notes?
This is Charlie Day. I don't know when that episode was. Like, y'all ain't gonna be able to read this, and that's fine. I just wanted to show you.
The background behind this is you were trying to do a story on Ken Zampese's offensive tree. Like, where is his offense coming from, right? And it started like, oh, that sounds like a simple idea. And you ended up with that combination of notes where you started taping pieces together. It ends up in an L. Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. That should have been the front cover of the Inquirer. It should have been just a picture of your notes taped together.
And unfortunately, after that Thursday night against Houston in 17,
off it went.
I mean, look, I as a person, Ken is awesome, and I don't think we can really argue with his like quarterback coaching. But as an OC, this none of this helped.
None of it helped. Amazing. I do want to get a chance. On Who Dey Light, we always wrap it up with dad life. And you're a prominent dog dad. Are you guys still fostering dogs up there?
We do in the summers. Basically, once the NBA draft's over, so like August, September, NBA kind of like shuts down. It's not like the NFL. So we don't do it in season. A little rough with the travel, but yeah, we've placed almost 20. We do puppies. It works for us. So yeah.
You have your two dogs, right?
Yeah.
So Easy
and Zosha.
And Zosha. Oh, Zosha's still going. Zosha, who injured your wife at my house.
That was Uncle Phil.
No. Yeah, it was Uncle Phil's my dog. It was my dog. I tried.
She suffered the Aaron Rodgers injury in your backyard.
In my backyard because my dog went after her knee.
I mean, another great story, as you and I may or may not had like suds in our arms as we watched it and laughed hysterically because it was a great, like, it was like that perfect America's Funniest Home Videos, like hit the legs, fly, face plant. We're like, and then after it was like, wait a minute, she ain't getting up. And then
She's like, she actually seems to be in quite a bit of pain.
Quite a bit of pain. Yeah.
So you might have some dog dad stories here. I have some. Would you have? I'll start it off here. I have. It's been funny to watch. It's sort of like, in Terminator when they talk about how the machines have become self-aware, and that's really when all hell breaks loose. We're kind of at that phase now with my youngest daughter. My oldest has been able to just. I mean, she's smarter than me at this point, and. But Rosie, who's 5, we took her to her first FC Cincinnati game last weekend. And so we're there and she is loving it. I mean, she's having the time of her life. She's hooked. She's my sports girl. Like, she's the one that's going to be at all the games. And like, she's going to be the one that's going to be getting really mad at like Joe Burrow when he's 43, trying to keep playing or whatever. Like, it's going to end up there, I'm sure. But that being said, we're at the game and she spots Cotton Candy Guy. Right now, I'm not. It's late. It's like almost halftime. It's almost 8:30. I'm not trying to get the bucket of cotton candy,
right?
And then we've got my daughters, of course. I want cotton candy too, and I'm like, oh, we don't want that. And I'm like, eventually, Rosie starts crying, and I'm like, oh, geez, can we just enjoy? We were doing so good. We were enjoying the game. Things were great.
Cotton candy.
And then. So Mabel's like, well, I would just do lemonade. And I'm like, all right, fine. You can have a lemonade. You can each choose one thing, and that's it. You can have a lemonade. You can have the cotton candy. I'll go get us a couple more beers. I'll go get it. So I go while the game's still going on. And you can't just find these people. They don't serve the bucket of cotton candy at the concession stand. You got to find the guys that are going around the vendor. Yeah. So I just stand in front of the vendor room and wait for someone to come out or go in. He finally shows up. I buy the cotton candy. I get the lemonade. I've got the drinks. It took a while to make it happen. I come back. The first thing I get is, where you been? Like, what took you so long? Okay. Not to mention I'm carrying everything in my arms. And I come back and she's eating the cotton candy with a massive smile on her face. And she gives me the finger like, hey, come down. I want to tell you something in your ear. And I go, what, honey? She goes, sometimes I cry so I get things.
She gave up the game.
I'm like, the machines are self-aware, Jim. Yeah. Like, look, you're right. You do, and it works. And it works this time again. I get it. Yes. You're right. You can do this to me. I see what happened. She had to let me know, not that she beat me, but how she beat me.
That's you know what that reminds me of. Remember, it was Marv actually, where it was just kind of like back in the days when people were complaining about video and stuff and watch offensive plays and it's controversial, and Marv was just like, if you can, I should be able to tell you what we're gonna do. Yeah, and I'll just beat you anyway. That was like anyway. That was like legitimately. That's fine. She gave up the game, and you know what?
Gave up the game.
And you're going to fall for it. You're going to lose the game the very next time.
For those that want to find out where Giannis is getting traded to this year, you can check out the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and all the great work that Jim is still doing there, just crushing it. And look, when it's Green Bay week, we'll be replaying all your tips for when people are going out there. And this has been so much fun, reliving the old days and all these great stories. And we didn't go too far into some of the darker places for Bengals fans. I think a lot of Bengals fans have blocked this era out. They're like, you know what? We've moved on, and we've chosen not to remember what it used to be like. And this is what it used to be like. We had to do a lot to get ourselves through it, and we did.
It's true. 15, I think, again, history should look more kindly on that team. I don't know the way it ended, but it's still pretty good. And yeah, we had to go. And Stevie Wonder can still see. So,
Stevie Wonder can still see. Stevie can see. More conspiracy theories. That's a great way to end it. Stevie can see. All right, Jim, this has been awesome. I hope we get to do it again sometime. I look forward to seeing you in person soon, my brother. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.